Hey, Lorna, thanks so much for joining me on a well designed business today.
Thank you, Luann. So glad to be here, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to attend this.
Yeah, me too. And it's so funny because I'm like, being with you is just bringing me back to Deb at Century and John at Century. And of
Yes,
course, the Dove Agency, because, these are the times that we've been together. We've been to beautiful dinners, one hosted by Century, one hosted by the Dove Agency.
yes,
And we've both been at both of them. And that's been so fun getting to know
yes.
you that
Vibing
way.
and eating well.
That's it, with good people and good companies,
Yes,
right? Yeah. So okay. So here's the
yes.
thing. This is a long time coming because that first time I met you, I think it was in
Was
2018.
it? Oh, because it was before
2018.
COVID, wasn't it?
It
That's
was. So
right.
it had to be 2018 or 2019. It might have been. I think it might have been
Yeah,
2018. Like that's how long we've been saying, "Oh, you should get on
yeah.
the show." So if I've said that to you before and you still have been on the show, keep in mind, Lauren, it's been 4 years we're trying to
Been
do this.
waiting,
So
waiting. When's my turn? When's my
that's it.
turn?
That's it. So here's the thing. What's interesting is I just said this on another interview that I did where I do have the chance to get to know many of you like yourself at multiple times, but then I read your intake form and I'm like, wait, what? So you were a dancer, a singer, and in corporate America all before you became an interior designer. I'm just like, wait, and you don't look old enough to have that many iterations of yourself, first of
Oh,
all.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. But I'm definitely about to pivot. I'm about to pivot.
That's it. And so that's an interesting thing that you just said because, off air, you just said to me, one of the things I want to make sure we drive home is that you can pivot and you can reinvent and that there's scariness with it. So, where do we want to start the conversation? Do we want to start with like why you do we want to start from why
Let's
you went from dance and
let's
singing to
let's
corporate?
do
Like
this
we
chronologically. Let's do this chronologically.
Okay, okay,
Okay?
okay.
If I can remember back that far. But just to begin, I was actually born in New York, but grew up in Louisiana, and very different kind of cultures. But in Louisiana, football was like really big. So I danced at the football games, and I was singing when I was in high school, and I even danced in the Super Bowl, believe it or not. Not many people know that.
Wow.
But the town that I grew up in was a beautiful town, lovely people, but it also was not the most wealthy area.
Hmm.
So when I decided that I was going to go to college, I didn't choose to do dance. I didn't choose to sing. I decided to major in business because I thought it was practical and I thought that I could
Mm.
take care of myself. So fast forwarding, I end up in getting these two business degrees, and then I end up in corporate America. So I'm in corporate America now, like a number of years, and I have a great track record. I've won all these awards. I'm like helping to manage multi-million dollar products, and I'm up for a promotion. And so I'm ready for my promotion. I create my dossier. I have all of my mentors speak on my behalf, and I get to the interview. And the director says to me, and he's a man, he says, Lorna, I know that you've achieved all these things. I know your track record and I know all of your accomplishments. But the only thing is, I've played golf with Doug and I know him better.
Holy cow. Like, that's insane. And just for context, what decade are we talking?
We're talking early 2000s, like not that long ago.
Whoa.
Not that long ago.
Right. We're
Yeah.
not like 70s, like, whoa. Like, yes, you're not like, oh my God.
Hmm.
So here's the thing. I have to tell you what I thought you were going to say, which is just as bad, is I thought you were going to say that he said, but Lorna, do you have a plan to start a family?
Oh,
Like I thought you were going to say that, which is just as bad.
would have been
But
just as bad.
just as much. So here's the thing. What he's saying is you're completely qualified. You're a great lady, great business person, all the things, but he kind of knows the other person up for the position better because we're golf
That
chums.
is correct. That
And
is
he's dumb enough to say it to your
And
face. That's the
isn't that
insanity.
amazing, Luann? Like the
Like the
gall.
brashness of it.
Exactly.
Yes.
The gall.
Right?
I love the word
Yes. So it's
temerity
not
too. I love words that have three syllables. Temerity, the gall.
that's
You know,
it.
like what? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
so
So did you quit? Did you
I
quit?
did not quit. And to be completely
I thought you were gonna say, "That's what I said.
no,
That's
you know
it. I'm
what? And
going
I
out on
will
my
say
own."
this, I didn't quit immediately. So let me tell you the first thing that I did. The first thing that I
Yeah.
did is I went home and I cried. To be completely
Well,
transparent,
yeah, there's
I
that.
like,
Sure.
I got myself a bubble
Because it's
bath. Oh my
insurmountable.
gosh,
What, I'm
like
gonna learn to play golf in order to get a promotion? Like, it's not based on my work, it's like on how far I can putt?
e
Like, this is dumb.
exactly. So in that moment, and here's the thing, I believe that the universe does these things to us to get us to make a different move.
Mhm.
Okay? So while I'm crying, I'm like in the tub and I'm like, okay, now that you're done, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
That's right.
So that same company was sending me away to a to Center for Creative Leadership. It's like this course for managers, and it's like 360-degree feedback and all of that. And they told me at that particular session that I had some of the highest scores they've seen, but they said you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing for a living. And I said, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And they said, well, we can't tell you that. You have to figure that out on your own. So this conference is I'm like in Colorado. I come back to Chicago at the time. I go to Barnes and Noble. I try to go look for some books. How can I figure out
Where's
what
my
it is that I'm
parachute?
supposed to be
Where's
doing?
my parachute?
So it turns out that I started this 6 month experiment to figure out what it is that I was supposed to be doing. And it required me to write my own obituary. It required me to interview my parents. It required me to have a better understanding for what my gifts were and all of that. And everything pointed to interior design. I also had to interview people in different professions, but everything wound up pointing to interior design. So the punchline of the story is I actually wound up getting the job because the VP basically was like, "No, you were gonna you were gonna hire her." But by that
Oh,
time, Luann, it was too late. It
right,
was
like your
too
brain had
it was too
passed.
late.
Yeah, you
Mm-mm.
you turned a
Yeah,
corner.
because I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
turned a
all of
corner.
this work that I've been doing for this company and all the money I've helped you make, and this
Mhm.
is the reward that I receive? Absolutely not. This is not the culture that I want
Mm,
to work in.
right.
So from there, I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? So I got already 2 business degrees. Okay, now what am I going to do? I did not like talking about efficacy rates and standard deviations, by the way, because I was working in marketing, but I was in pharmaceuticals, and I was like, I only enjoy this stuff anyway. So anyway, okay, um,
I'm great at it, and I made you a lot of money, but I don't
oh,
like
that's
it.
not fun. so, so so anyway, I decide to start working for a communications agency. And in doing that, I was able to go back to school at night to get my interior design degree. So that's what I did. I was still kind of working in a highly corporate oriented or business environment, but I was going to take my classes at night, and that's what I did. So now, another little story here on this, though, when we talk about the art of the pivot and the pitfalls and little things that will kind of get in your way and kind of take you off the path. So I will say, like, about 3 or 4 weeks before I'm getting ready to leave my company, um, I'm riding one summer with my mother, and I'm like, mommy, I'm getting ready to leave this job. And she's like, you're not going to leave this job. You've got all of these benefits. And I did. I had stock options. I had trips to Hawaii. I had great friends. I had all of this stuff. And I was like, for that moment, I was like, Dad, should I not leave this job? Because this is my mother
Mhm.
saying this to me, right? But
Sure.
I remember in that moment, like feeling something compress in me. And what I responded with was, Mommy, the only way that I won't do this is if I'm not courageous enough.
Mm,
And so it was almost like from that moment on, I just kept telling myself, have the courage, have the courage. Because you're going to be scared when you do anything
that's
new.
right.
But you have to kind of like say, despite the fear, despite being scared, I'm still going to move forward. And that's what I did. So,
So much in there. Okay, so much in there. So here's the thing. Um I think right on that moment there where you're saying, if I don't, the only reason I wouldn't is because I'm not courageous enough. It's we do have to be willing to bet on ourselves. And
Yes, Luann.
when you say, like, your mother is pointing out all of the wonderful things that are coming with this job, but at the end of the day, she probably was not aware keenly that you weren't actually satisfied. You weren't actually feeling fulfilled, right? Like you said, like, it wasn't fun. You didn't like it. And it's so the trappings aren't worth it. But we do have these things, these major influences in our life where, your mother could very well be like many of us mothers now, and our mothers were like, I'm sorry, that pays the bills and it pays a lot of them.
That's
Like,
it. That's it.
who said anything about being happy?
And
Like,
and I think that is so true
I mean,
though,
our
right?
generation of mothers and parents, it was like,
Yes.
right? Like,
You
yeah,
have a you have
right,
a good
right.
paying job, girl. You don't have to be happy.
Yeah,
Just get the paycheck and go home. Be happy when you get
right.
home.
And it's that's it. It's like, and my mother listens to every darn show. She's gonna be like, I never said that to you. And you're right. You never did, mom. She never did. But I do understand that it would not be unkind or unusual for a parent to look at the package of your corporate job and think, what are you doing? Right. So your point, what I'm saying, your statement of I have to be courageous. That's like truly there because you're the one getting all the benefit of that corporate job. You have all the cushion. You have all the things and you're going to put it on the line and walk away. And then you've got, people you love going, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think
Not
yeah, I
easy.
think for me, looking back now as you're talking to me, I'm kind of thinking like what was in my head. And I think that I was trying to choose joy. I think I was just trying
Yes.
to get to the place of joy, knowing that you wake up every morning going to work, knowing that I was waking
Mhm.
up with a bit of dread every morning. As a matter of
Yes.
fact, I would get it on
Yes.
Saturday, Luann. On
Oh,
Saturday
yuck.
evening, I would
So what do we have, like 12
man,
hours from Friday night to Saturday
yeah,
morning that we were happy on it's a weekend and then it's like, "Oh my god, the weekend's almost over."
yeah, yeah. But I also think that that's a hint, right? So when I talk to people
Right,
that
that's a smack in the face, Lorna, not a
yeah,
hint. That's, like, big, right?
yeah. But I do think, once again that, there's these little there's not like little, this is bigger, as you said. You get these signals that say, you know what, maybe you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I am somebody who also believes that everything is for a season, right? Like
Yes.
most things are really not for forever. Most things are
Right,
for a
right.
season. And that season might be a long season, but it might be a short season. The key is to kind of have an understanding for when the season is over and it's time to move to the next one.
That you know what? That's right there. Like, that is the thing right there. The key is to understand when it's time to move on to a different season. That honor what happened, honor that you got something. I'm sure, your experience in corporate, 2 business degrees, your experience in corporate totally informed your interior design business. It totally informed probably the way you relate with your high luxury consumers in the DC area. I mean, come on, you were built to like just be like, let's do
But
this. Like I speak your language here, right?
what's funny though is when I was making that transition, I thought to myself, I've wasted all these years.
Oh,
I
see,
remember
in the
thinking in
moment
the
you thought
moment I
that.
thought, man, I've invested all of this time and all this effort in business, and now I'm going to become an interior designer. Like I've wasted all these years. And I think that I had finished my degree and had started my business. I think I was maybe 9 months to 12 months in when I was like, all right,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
using this. I'm using this.
That's
And so
right.
that's one other thing that I would share with your listeners is that nothing is wasted on our journey. Nothing is
No.
wasted.
Everything it all happens for a reason. It all conspires to bring you to the place that you're supposed to be. However, your point is well made. You have to recognize when it's time for the switch and not stay somewhere just because that's where you are, right? It's like it can't be this is what I've always done, so I'm going to keep doing it,
Right. Right.
right?
And
Yeah.
the unfortunate thing is the soft signals will come along, and if you don't get it, you're gonna get knocked in the head with a cinder block after a while. Like, the universe is like, "Okay, look, I tried to tap you on the shoulder, but."
It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. Good messages, bad messages, when you're on the right track, the universe sends you the messages that it's good. When you're on the wrong track,
Yeah.
and it's I just did an Instagram live today with Katie McDonald, and we talked about the same thing. It was in regard to your health and your wellness care.
Yes.
It's like, okay, so maybe the first couple of signs are that you're getting 3 or 4 colds a year. And then, oh,
Ah.
you don't want to take care of yourself. Oh, okay, sweetie, so maybe this is we're going to do now. This is going to happen to you. And then, like, and I know me, I was saying in the Instagram, when I am got myself to a point where I'm not taking good care of myself, my throat will hurt. Because what is
Mm.
the one thing that I still can't do this with?
Wow.
Like, and as soon as I just go,
That's deep.
okay, thank you. Yeah, it is. And the thing is, the sore throat, as soon as I just switch the flip and I go, okay, so tonight I'm just going to relax or whatever, and tomorrow morning, instead of working like an idiot until the first interview, or if I make the immediate boom, you know, the sore throat goes away like that.
You know what?
it's it's when I ignore it that it lays me down, and we have to cancel interviews, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh,
I
see.
find that so interesting because I do think that we get hit by it at different areas of our body, right?
Hmm.
Mine hits me in my abdomen, and my abdomen feels like it's doing this. And
Yes,
sometimes
it's
I'm not
nodding. It's
paying attention because
hmm
it creeps in. It kind of creeps in little increments, right? And then all of a sudden it's
hmm
like taking over.
Yeah, you're out of balance, and it's trying to tell you you're out of balance. And so what we're talking about is that, in your corporate career, you were having those similar signals.
Hmm.
And some, I'm sure, that moment when he's like, "Hey, I golf with Dan," that was like, the big bang on the head. But there were probably other signals along, maybe when you were waking up and not feeling charged up to go to work, or Saturday. I mean, it's one thing to dread Monday on Sunday night, Lorna, but we're
I know.
dreading it on
I know it was
Saturday
pretty
morning.
pathetic. It was pretty pathetic.
I mean,
But they also used to.
like, the hindsight of that, right? The hindsight is like, duh.
I know. We used to also have these dinners. We'd work all day and then we'd have these dinners. And then they would want to talk about work at dinner. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about work anymore. Like, but they were rejuvenated
Right.
by it. I wasn't. I was like,
Mm.
and I was known for this. Like I would I would have dinner and then I would take my dessert back to my hotel room. I was like known for that move. Y'all go
That's
ahead. Keep
it.
talking. You guys keep talking about it.
That's it.
But to, to the point that you were talking about, about the signals that we get, what I've learned now, what I know now, and I think I probably got this message maybe somewhere like around 5 years ago, is that the most important thing that we can do for ourselves is to take time to go quiet. Because the
Mhm.
divine is speaking to us all the time. But if we're like running around like a crazy person, there's no breath to receive the message. So what I've learned to do is every Sunday I spend some time. Sometimes I don't have a whole bunch of time. I'll at least do 15 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour, but I try to meditate and pray. So, and then
Mm.
I also do that every morning. So every
Nice.
morning I spend 10 to 15 minutes before I even put my foot down on the floor. I'm in bed and I'm like saying, God, thank you so much for waking me up today.
Aw.
And then I have my affirmations for what I want this day to be. And by the way, girlie, one of my affirmations today was this podcast is going to be awesome. Right? Um,
I love it.
go for it. Um,
If you intend it,
hey,
it'll happen.
but I do think that it is something that's very important to do because I think that intuition is a big thing, right? Intuition, we get these signals. The question is whether or not we're going to pay attention to them, but they're there.
Yes.
But if we
Mhm.
are just like, if we have a life that is created that is so busy that every moment is spoken for, there's no time, there's no air
Mhm.
to receive the
Right.
signal and the message.
Yeah, you need the white space. Your brain needs the white
Yeah.
space. It needs the space to think, reflect, gather the hindsight and to hear the inside voice, to hear our goddess voice. Like, what the heck is happening here? Um, the thing is that many times we'll hear the voice, but we don't do what you said, is take the courage to move on it, right? You got to have the you got to combine it with the courage, and you have to have a capacity for risk, and you have to have a capacity for not everything is going to work out.
Yes.
But like for
Yes.
me, everything is a lesson. Like I don't,
Yes.
it's kind of like, what do they say? What is it? WD-40, like that WD-40.
Yes.
You know why it's called 40? Because it's the 40th
Is
formula
that right?
until it worked.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It's like, I forget what the WD stands for, but it's like, I don't know. It's some really obvious WD that it's like, but it's 40. It's the 40th version
Wow.
of it that finally worked. And it's like, if you have to risk failure to get to the next season, that next thing that you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And sometimes you do fail 39 times. Sometimes you make that risk and it works out the first time. That's
Yeah.
good. But like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like, as long as we're not stuck, dreading Saturday and Sunday,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because interestingly, even the path to interior design was kind of like a I'm on the path and off the path kind of thing. So I was one of those girls when I grew up that I didn't have Barbie dolls, even though I love that Barbie movie, but I didn't have, I didn't have Barbie dolls. I had Lincoln Logs. So I was always building. My father
Oh.
was a contractor, so there were always these floor plans and blueprints and stuff like that around the house that I would just sit there and look at. I got kicks out of that. Um,
That's crazy.
and after I got my MBA, I'd moved into a house, and people who'd come to the house would be like, "Oh, Lorna, you're really talented at this." And I really enjoyed the whole idea of interior design and decorating. But I started to do it for a couple of friends, and it wasn't working for me because I don't know, like one friend would be like, "Girl, I didn't get that wallpaper. I decided to buy the shoes instead." And I'm like, "You know what? You know what?"
Okay.
Um, so, so I just dipped my toe in and then I left. But I
Mm,
think that timing is also everything, right? So it may not have been the appropriate time for me to do that, but I was still wired for it. Like
right.
my
Right.
mother was a teacher, but she was also a seamstress. So I also had all these beautiful fabrics around the house. So,
Oh,
I
wow.
also believe that our environment that we grow up in also oftentimes informs who we are supposed to become, right?
Yes.
Um, so I think that it kind of just all kind of came together, right?
Yeah, it really is interesting how all of those um different things in your childhood, like, that's crazy. Your father with the plans and being in construction and building things, your mother with the fabric and the textiles. Like, it's almost like funny. And I have to say, I think for 100% that the level of success that you've attained in your design firm is a lot based on that business career, that
Oh,
you could come to it and put a structure around it, not just pretty fabric and yada yada. Like, that was not wasted time, right? That was your training for running a profitable
yeah, and
business.
and you're so right, Luann, because just being in corporate America and being responsible for different budgets also helped me,
Yeah.
right? In creating forecasts and creating marketing plans and business plans and creating strategy and tactics. And also knowing that, as you said earlier, quite eloquently, we're not always going to succeed. Like everything that we try is not going to be a success. But okay, like when this doesn't work out, then what do you do? Okay, this didn't
Right.
work out, so then what do you do? So the thing I do like to think about when I think of failure is that failure means that you tried,
Right.
And
Right.
so in this whole idea of reinventing oneself or reimagining oneself, you kind of have to try to see if you were even going to have a shot at it.
Right.
And I
Right.
think for women in
Be-
particular, we are not taught as much to take risks as much as men.
mm.
Just to kind of throw it out there and see what's going to happen. And as you said, to kind of
Mhm.
to bet on yourself, to bet on yourself.
Right. Right, right. And so you've done this. So was the first time just like grit, that's it. Like you looked at your mother and said, "I'm going to muster the courage and I'm going to do this." Right.
Yes,
Okay. Now you're
yes.
yes.
But I will say this. So this is the
Okay.
cool thing though, right? The cool thing is once you do it once, you refer back to it and you know that you can do it again. And I mean that
Mhm.
in every aspect of one's life, right? Like not just career but also relationships. Hey, if you have to like say, okay, I'm going to walk away from this, it's okay cuz it's going to be replaced with something else or better, right? So, once you do it once, the fear of it starts to minimize because you see how you're still here. If you failed or
Yeah.
you didn't fail, you're still here. And if you failed, you've had learnings that will help you for the next time. So
100%.
for me, this whole journey keeps going, right? So during COVID, it was quiet, and I love to write. I've always loved to write, even from when I was a kid. I just started writing this book. I don't even know where it came from on like entertaining because well, no, I should say I do know where comes from. I love entertaining. My sister and I were always responsible for setting the table every Sunday for our family, formal setting, and then that was in New York, and then in Louisiana, um, we like had the picnic stuff, crawfish boils, crab feasts, and we would dance on the tables, and so like the whole idea of entertaining and bringing people together in human connection and fellowship is very important to me. So I think that was kind of where I was. I started writing this book on entertaining and tabletop design and it just started flowing, right? And listen, remember I was telling
Whoa.
you about being when it was flowing because it was quiet. It was
Right,
quiet, so
right,
I'm
right,
just like
right.
getting the signals like, okay, what you gonna do today? You can't go out and go hang out with people. You might as well just go ahead and keep writing. So 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 that's what I did.
You may as well
You
be an author of a
might as well do
really
that.
fabulous
Might as
book.
well do that. Um, and as you and I were talking about these other little signals, like sometimes it's dread, but then sometimes it's the things that people say to you, right? So people said to
Mm,
me, "Oh, Lorna, it seems like you have a talent at design." And you shouldn't ignore these things that people say might be natural talents for yourself. Um, for about 3 years, I'm a member of the Design Trust, right? And we have these meetings that occur twice a year. And at about 3 meetings, my colleagues kept coming up to me out of nowhere saying, "Lorna, you need to talk. Lorna, you need to talk. You need to." And I'm like, "No, I don't talk. I don't talk. No, no. You did you have a show before? No, I never had a show. Lorna, you need to talk. No, I don't talk. I don't talk. I listen. I don't talk. I ask questions. I don't talk." So what started happening though, very weird, was just before, I think this was maybe like a few weeks before COVID, I started getting all these inquiries for shows. Like from
wow.
like all these different shows, TV shows and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is this? Like, God, what are you doing? Why are you sending all these things to me? None of them were a perfect fit, but what they did was they opened my mind to see that maybe other folks saw something else in me that I wasn't tapping into.
Right,
And I
right,
had and I
right.
had the option of either saying I wasn't going to pay attention to it and just kind of brush it off or really look at it. So this year, and actually this fall, I'm going to be launching a podcast. But
Yay.
to me, it's amazing because I was always known as a shy kid. So for me to be doing this, even doing this podcast, girl, probably 5 years ago, I would have been like, Luann, I'm not. I know that's why that's why we haven't been able to do this. I'm not talking to you. But the thing is, it's like just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean that you can't do it. And I think
Right.
for your listeners, that's important too because one does not have to necessarily be an expert or a master at something to embark on it, something new.
Mm,
Everybody has something of value to offer, even if it's
that's
not
so
done
good.
that way previously.
That's so good. I love that. Because if we sit around and we wait until the moment that we feel 100% ready and that we feel that we've reached expert status, like I don't know that that ever comes. I don't know that that feeling
Never.
comes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how could you get there? Because if you get there, then you're saying you can't get better. And I feel like I can always get better. Every day I can get better at something. So I love that you say you don't have to wait until you feel like you're an expert. You know something, you know what you know, and you just have to like quantify it, right? And qualify it and put your box around it to present it out there,
Yes,
right?
yes. And everybody has their own unique perspective. Um, and once again, going back to women, women always think that we have to have all of our ducks in a row first. You know, you always hear
Mhm.
people talk about how women don't apply for jobs because their resume doesn't check all the boxes in the job posting.
Right.
Whereas men are like, hey man, I checked 2 out of 20 boxes. I'm interviewing for that. You know? So so it's like, you know what? If you feel like
So
you have
true.
something to offer, take the risk and step out there and try to do it. I was going to ask you, when you started your podcast, were you 100% sure, or were you like, you know what? Like, what were you thinking? What was in your head when you started?
So so I'm very, very also keen on intuition and the signs.
Mm,
And my brain processes it, I always call it in verticals.
mm,
So this thing happens here, and this thing happens here, and this thing happens here, and that thing happens there. And they all seem like they're in their own silo. But then there's a moment where something will happen and it's like, whoa, they're all connected and they all connect and point to this.
mm.
And then what happens is, then I get very sure. So there was that moment, the whole backstory on these 5 or 6 things that all one day I was like, oh, it's a podcast. I need a podcast. This is what I have to do. So the thing is, when you say, was I sure? And did I feel like I was an expert at it before I decided? The answer is yes and no. I had absolute clarity at that moment that these other things all happened for a reason and brought me to that decision. But at that moment, I didn't know what the podcast would be about. At that moment, I didn't have the
Mm.
slightest idea how I would podcast. What did that mean? I listened to podcasts at that point, but I didn't know, how do you record one? How do you edit one? How does one get from the recording out
Right,
to the world?
right.
Like, how do you make that little thing on the iTunes that says the name of your podcast? Like, none of it, none of it. But I was 100% certain that this was what I should do. Now, was I 100% certain that it would be good, that I would be good at it? Was I an expert? Was there
Mm.
anything in my world that said, yeah, you'll be a great podcaster? No, there was nothing. There was no evidence of that. Now, am I ridiculously, insatiably curious? Yes. Do I have to ask you like so many questions that my husband's like, I'm sorry, this is a cocktail party. You're interrogating them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just really want to know, you know
Right.
what I mean? And so there were skill sets that I expected would be good,
Mm.
but there was clarity that it was what to do, but recognition of expertville and even recognition of amateurville, like none of that. Like, no. But then that's when you get down and you do the work and you listen to the goddess in your head and you're like, yeah, lady, I'm
Yeah,
doing it. I got
yeah,
this. I'm going to figure this
yeah.
out, you know? And then what happens is, I think to your point, when we talk about the other signs, like your sign on Saturday that you were already dreading Monday, you get the signs, like I said, the positive signs too.
Yes,
Like you do it and you're like, whoa, that's fun.
yes,
That's
yes.
cool. I like that. And then I got the huge gift of having an audience that from the beginning told me they were listening.
Mm.
I will never forget. It was like 2 or 3 weeks of podcasting, and Mary Fran Broussard emailed WindowWorks and she said, blah, 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 blah. I listened
Oh,
to your
that's a
podcast.
gift.
I'm so,
That's a gift.
and I'm telling you what, me and Kim was like, you should see the email that came into Windows. I'm like, what? She's like, somebody listens to your show. I'm like, what? It was
Mm.
nuts. And so I just have been extremely fortunate in that way. And so that's why, as a habit, I think I was raised this way and it was part of my DNA, but I love to look at people and say, I see you. You're doing a
Mm,
good job, because
yes.
it means so much. You have
Yes.
no idea who it means, what it means to
Yes. I
people.
love that Oprah Winfrey would say that all the time. They would ask her, like, why her interviews, as varied as they were so successful. And she said what she
Mm.
recognized was that everyone wants to feel valued. Everyone
Yes, you
wants to
just
feel
got to
seen
find
and
them.
everyone wants to feel valued.
And if you are genuinely curious about that special secret sauce of each person, how, if you really want to know what that is, how can you not show them that they're
Right,
valuable,
right,
right?
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly right.
It's
And I think when you talk
yeah,
about that,
so
that sauce, I think one of the things that makes your podcast so successful is that everyone has their unique perspective, right? And
yep.
when you started your podcast, you were filling this gap that no one else had filled for us as interior designers.
Mhm. Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
at that time also talking, interior designers talking amongst themselves about business was taboo. Like, "Oop, we don't talk
Right.
about that.
Yep.
We can listen to this podcast
I know.
though."
That's right. Well, and the thing is, see, I come from window treatment industry where we always share.
Mm,
We always like, okay, what's how much profit margin you're doing, and what do you pay your salespeople? Like, we Vinny and I, that's we always ran like the organizations. Whether first it was Window Works and now it's Exciting Windows, where that's our culture.
mhm,
And so for me, I just started asking people, how much do you charge for that, and what do you make, and what do you pay your people? And they're like, wait, what? And I didn't even, for me, like I can remember people saying to me, oh my God, you got people talking about it in the industry, like, and I'm like, yeah, I just, why wouldn't you?
yeah,
like why wouldn't you help each other out by doing it?
mhm,
And so I'm
mhm,
glad that we've made the
mhm.
turn. And because you realize that the more you know has no negative impact on the other person. It's just the more you
Right.
know. And the more you know, then you share something else and somebody else knows something.
Yes,
It's
yes.
there's no it's fill the cup and it just keeps filling. It's not, it doesn't come out of somebody else's
Yeah.
cup, right?
I also love the
So,
lesson that you were talking about when you were mentioning the people who cheered you on along the way, because I do think that that's so critical when you're pivoting, is to surround yourself
mhm,
with people who are going to cheer you on, people who are going to support you, and people who are going to speak belief into you, because you're
yes.
not going to be confident all the time. You're not necessarily, unless they're you. You're not going to be 100, unless you're
No,
not going to be
but
100% sure all the time. And
well, but see, you can be sure it's what you should do, but you're not sure it's you're doing it well or doing
yes,
it the right way.
yes,
That's the
absolutely,
thing. That's why,
absolutely, absolutely. Like,
yeah, and it is that gift of validation and of appreciation from others. And you're right, you have to surround yourself with people that believe you can do it
hmm
and that want you to succeed, because it is, at every time. Look, 7 years in, and how many years as a designer? I'm sure there's moments where you're just like, did I really nail that one? Or is that really a good
yeah,
design? Or
yeah.
gosh, did I do that proposal the right way?
Listen,
You
Luann, I
need
had a moment literally 2 weeks ago, right? So, I'm pivoting like nobody's business right now. I'm reimagining everything right now. So I created these curated travel experiences, right? The first is going to launch to New Orleans in April, and it's
Mm.
very high level. It's exclusive. It's fabulous. I'm giving the backstory to, like, you know the town, the surrounding town, like the music. I mean, it's everything. So listen,
I just
what
gotta
what
say, you have to come over to YouTube and watch Lorna describe this. She just is, it is, I mean, you like the body language describing this. It is worth the travel to YouTube. I love it. Own
Oh,
it,
own
girl.
it,
Own
own
it.
it, do it. But seriously though, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, man, nobody's gonna want to get on this vacation thing with you, girl. Nobody's gonna want to travel with you, because these little
That's right.
things, especially when you haven't done it before. You
That's
haven't
right.
done it before, so that question mark goes there. Can you do it? Is it going to be successful? And so, in the moments when maybe you don't even have the friends around to do it. You may have the friends to do it, but sometimes you need a little bit more. So I follow Joel Osteen. He's a pastor out of
Mm.
Houston, Texas, and he speaks about positivity. Love him. But he also has a book that came out like just in time, right? Like last month, and it's about believing. And so like right now, like every night I'm reading chapters of that book about believing. So I only say that to say that you can surround yourself with resources all the way around that help speak positivity and belief and faith into you that anything is possible, that you can accomplish anything.
Well, and it's funny because as you were talking, I wrote, go back to that. I know it. So, what I mean is by that is you came up with this curated travel. You believe in it. You know it is valuable. You know you are going to deliver an amazing experience. Like I said, if you're
Oh yeah.
not sure, go watch her physically describe it. Like literally owns it. And so, but the thing about it is to your point, it's you're going to have those moments along the way where you question it. And that's my thing, and I hope it's clear. I was not from day 1, I know this will be successful. I was from day 1, I know I need to do it.
Mm-hmm,
But
hmm.
then as you're creating it and you're doing the interviews and you're like, is that a good interview? Does anybody care? And that you have to your point, you have to keep pushing through.
Yes.
You have the people
Yes,
around you who
Luann.
will support you, but you have to push through the doubt. And for me, I go back to I made a very logical decision that this was good for my life, my personality, my skill set, and it was needed in the industry. Those are 4 valid non-debatable facts. So over here, you wondering if it matters and anybody's listening and did you do a good job, you're going to need to put those on a little hot shelf while you just pay attention to these
Yes.
things to get your butt through this process, right? So
Right.
so right now, you're going to put those little doubts on a shelf, and when you launch it and the roster fills up, and you do, and here's what I'm going to tell you: you're going to do your first trip to New Orleans, and when you plan the second one, you're going to start all over again. Does anybody want to go? Is anybody going to want to come
No,
again? Like,
no,
am I going
Luann, look,
to?
there's this thing that I learned though. This thing that I learned. I never heard this term until like 3 months ago, and it's called habituation. I love it. So
Mm,
habituation is that the more you do something, the easier it gets, right?
yes, yes, yes,
Now,
yes, yes.
meanwhile, I might want to do the trip differently next
Right,
time, but
and
they
you'll
would have
develop a
been
process
learnings
for it.
along the way, and I'll know like, okay, how to, do it such that more of the question marks are taken away.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, and I'm going to tell you, look, I do the Power Talk Friday tours. They're 1-day coaching events, right? I've done 7, 8, 9 of them. Every one of them has been fantastic. Every one of them has been a success. And literally 2 weeks before every one, I'm like, is this like, okay, is this the last one? Are we never going to do this again? And then all of a sudden we get, 10 more signups and we have a full house of 24 designers, and I'm like, okay, I guess, well, okay. So I just like, it's funny because Sandra Funk was on the show a
Oh,
month
yes,
or
yes.
so ago, and she talked about the millionaire mindset,
Hmm.
right? And it's kind of, I think that sometimes when we look at others, whether within our industry or out, and they look like who we think they are, we all have this in us.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
but I think the secret sauce, that little difference is if I have come to a good quality decision that is based on as much information as I can gather. And my gut, my inner goddess is like, yes, then I will push through. I will just give it my very, very, very best, and I will fight tooth and nail. And if it fails, then it's going to iterate. Then it's like, oh, that wasn't
Yeah.
good. Like you
Yeah.
said, you're going to learn things on the New Orleans thing, but that doesn't mean you're going to pitch doing curated travel.
Right.
You're going to
Right.
say, maybe we do this, right? And so it's a combination of data and
See,
intuition, and to your words, courage.
yes. And I love what you said because I want to make it clear that we're not talking about just taking a risk and stepping out with no knowledge. right? Like
Nope.
there's
No,
to
ma'am.
be smart about it, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of planning, there may be interviewing of multiple people from different backgrounds who are experts in this area that you might want to go to. So, but what we have to say is at some point you have to take the leap, right?
That's right. That's
But
right.
you prepare first, you work in a level of excellence as best you can, and then you take the leap,
That's right.
right?
And your level of excellence will grow every month and every year. To your
Yes.
first point, do we need to be the expert to just do it? No. Like, I literally, one time, about 4 years ago, I listened to one of my podcast episodes from the first
Uh-huh.
year because we were going to do a flashback Friday. I've said this story
Okay.
before. We were going to do a flashback Friday. I probably lost my, throat. And then we were like, okay, so what are we going to do? And I'm like, okay, I'm listening to the universe. The universe is like, shut up and relax. And I was like, okay. So we were like, okay, we could do a flashback Friday. And I said, okay, so you know what? I want to pick this one particular episode. I remember this Veronica Solemn. She is an amazing coach to interior designers, and she's such a leader in the industry. And I said, you know what? People probably don't even realize I had her on in the first 6 months of the podcast. Let's do that.
Yes. What?
Lorna, I I said, okay, let me listen to the episode because it's like 2.5, 3 years since I've done it. I am heading down to the beach house. I put the episode in the car. Say, here comes the announcer intro. And I say, hi, Veronica. Welcome to a well designed business. And then I look at the clock. She does not get a moment to speak until 8 minutes in. And I am just like, what the actual? How did this show ever get off the ground? So you want to talk about, do you have to be an expert before you start something? Like, no. And when we do flashback Fridays now, I'm like, keep me away from them. Keep me away
No,
from them.
thank you.
And
No, thank
I
you.
and I say to my editors, go slice that baby out. Cut me up. You know, like, no. So no, there's no expertville in what you start. There's a belief that your data and your intuition and your inner voice has said to you you're on the right track.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
expertville, no, that comes. I'm still waiting for expertville in podcasting.
I think the thing that's cool though, and you probably are very aware of this because you had your window treatment business before you did your podcast, is you can be doing something very well and still strike out doing something else. Take a chance to do
Yes.
something else.
Yes.
Um,
Well, and the other thing too is, all of us don't actually have our first, several attempts at something documented. like, when I did window treatments in the beginning and I wasn't so good at it, we don't have those on documentation for all of time.
but now you do with this podcast, so there.
That's it. It's like right there.
Yeah.
But no, I love the courage and here you are in another big pivot. And so I don't even know, we'll edit it out if you don't want me to ask this question, but are you intending with the introduction of the book in fall of 2024 and the podcast coming and the curated travel,
Yes.
are you intending to keep the interior design firm or are you,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
you
Yes.
are.
I don't know if
See,
you know Tracy
okay.
Connell, but Tracy Connell and I
Oh, I
are
love
yeah,
Tracy.
we're buddies in a mastermind. And she has an equally successful interior design business, but she's also a great coach for
Yeah, the confidential. Yeah.
for interior designers. And she and I talk about the interior design business as our crown jewel. It
Oh,
is,
nice.
sometimes we think of it as like a train, and the
Yes.
interior design business is the engine. But that doesn't mean you can't have all
Ah,
these
yeah.
little train cars and the caboose at
Mhm.
the end. They're
Mhm.
doing all these other things. For me, I just see it continuing to go, right? I'm at this point
Nice.
where I am reimagining so many things after travel. There'll be a product line, and if all goes well, there may be a streaming series also. Um,
Nice.
but
Putting it into the
putting it
universe.
into the
Right?
universe,
Yes.
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 Um, and then the funny thing is, Luann, I even think I know what my great work is going to be, but
Oh,
it's not related to beauty. It's related to inspiration, but it's going to be a story regarding my family. It's going to be historical fiction. So I don't know if I'm going to be 85 writing that, I might be 85
You
years
mean
old.
a novel, a grand
Yes.
novel?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
I already know the first line of the book. It's like she became an adult when she was 5 years old. That's all I have thus
oh,
far. But but stay tuned, and I'm
okay.
gonna have more sentences for that for that book.
I'm gonna put other sentences in it.
Right, right.
I promise. Before I hit up the publisher, I'll have a few more sentences.
I do. I kind of see myself like sitting in front of a window typing, and this is like
I
my
love it.
last great work. Like I'm doing this is like going to inspire people. So,
I love
but
it.
yeah, one of the other things I was going to mention also, Luann, when we talk about all of these different opportunities to reimagine oneself, that you and I were talking about family commitments earlier, and everything is not necessarily supposed to happen at one time. There are seasons for everything. One of the reasons why this is a great season for me, reimagining so many different things, is because this morning I dropped my son off at college, and
Yeah.
he is the second of two. Um, so,
Ah,
what that means is that there'll be more time available for me to embark on different interests, right? And different passions and things that I've always wanted to do. But I can tell you about maybe 5 years ago, prior to maybe 6, 7 years ago, I was like, you know what? I want to design overseas. Okay. So, and I did. I started designing overseas. And then guess what? I
wow.
started missing my
What?
family too much.
Oh,
And they
see,
were
there you
missing
go.
me too
It's like
much.
be careful what you
Be
ask
careful what
for,
you
right?
ask for. So I did
Yes,
it. I did it successfully. But guess what? I stepped back from it because it
that's it.
wasn't the season for me to do that. It didn't feel good in longevity. So,
Right.
sometimes we have to make decisions for ourselves that are in alignment with what's ideal for our lives in that moment. So, especially with women, I think that we have to kind of think of this. I can't remember if this was Oprah or somebody else who said you can have everything, you just can't have everything at one time.
All
I
at
can't
one
remember,
time.
but even though I try sometimes to do that,
That's it.
then I
That's
get
it.
that
That's
thing in my stomach that starts
it.
twisting. Like, stop it. Um, yeah, but the
But that's also an interesting lesson to learn, right? When you are a driven personality and you do have opportunity and you create opportunity, like that. That's a come to Jesus moment. Okay, here I am designing overseas. I asked for this, I created this. And I love that it doesn't sound like that. Like, I don't, to me, I don't imagine it was like, I can't do this because of all you people in my family here. It was like, you know what, let me just reframe
yeah,
this is actually not what's making me most fulfilled right now.
yes,
I'm missing you guys, you're missing
yeah,
me, and what exactly is the point of
hmm
this? And so it's also when you recognize all the different signs that we're talking about, the good and the bad, it is that. It's also to just check in and say, yeah, okay. Like, it's funny that you mentioned Tracy Connell, because Tracy coached with me for a year,
okay,
and I'm going to tell you, I've said this a dozen times. 90% of our coaching was me going, yes, you're capable of that. Do we need to do that? Yes, you're capable of that. Is that what you really want to do? Yes, you're capable of that. It was like reining a wild
yeah,
horse,
yeah,
okay? Because she's so incredibly
yes,
talented
yes,
and has these abilities.
yes,
And so it is recognizing, just because I can, just because I'm capable, doesn't really serve me at this season of my life, because you get less joy
yeah,
from it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, when it doesn't fit, it has to fit the jigsaw puzzle of your
Yeah, and
life.
that's also where you have to be careful, right? Because you can get tripped up. Because the ego might say to you, you know what? I already told people I'm doing this, or I already told people I'm going to do this. And then you have to give yourself the permission to walk away.
That's right. It's my life. I'm going to tell
Yes,
you, guess what? Now I'm telling you
absolutely.
I'm not doing
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
But it's not that easy. Sometimes it is the pressure of, I've said I'm going to do this. I mean, I'm making like a flip out of it, but it's not. Like, that also can be a very serious, huh?
Yeah,
But I've invested in telling everybody
yeah,
about this.
yeah,
And now it doesn't feel so good for me, or my family isn't living this. It's funny because it takes knowing yourself, right? It takes the white space, like you said, the quiet space, the giving yourself that you take the 15 minutes every morning and you add to it with an undivided 15 minutes on
Yeah.
Sunday. And you have to give yourself that space to check in.
Yes.
Is all of this good?
Yes.
Does this feel good? Am I doing the right
Yes.
things?
Yes. And then
Right?
also
Right?
ask yourself, does this sound like fun to some degree? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like what's the point of us working so hard and doing stuff if we're not having some fun? Right?
No.
Like we put
No.
so much time
No.
into work.
Yeah. 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 No,
We should
it's
be
true.
getting
It's so
some kind of
true.
enjoyment out of it.
Yeah. No, it's true. Um, my journey where I'm at right now is 7 years in doing this, and every minute of is fun, literally,
Great.
is understanding, oh, you don't have to do it all day, every day just because it's fun. You can have fun other ways.
Because then your throat's going to
So
start
this is
clogging up on you.
this is the truth. This is the truth. And this has been like since June, and I've been talking about it and going live on Instagram and like making this commitment to go into November at Luann Live feeling
Yeah.
balanced.
You know what's so
Like,
interesting about
like,
this that you're sharing about balance and getting joy? Um, the podcast that I'm doing is not regarding interior design. And I have
I,
to tell you that people were kind of pressuring me, like, but Lorna, you should be talking about design. You should be talking about design. I don't want to talk about design. I want to talk about people. So for me, I I struggled with it for a second because the reason it wasn't coming together is because I was trying to fit it into what other people thought I should be talking about. When in actuality, what I wanted to do was to shine light on the human experience and on the journeys that successful people have to take to get to the point of success. We talked about it not being a straight and linear path. It has all these curves in the road. And I wanted to uncover that to give some people inspiration and hope who are hoping to do different things, like to know, hey, you know what? For example, one of my clients is a university professor, and he shared with me that 73% of people don't end up in the career that they had their major in. So
that's,
just
I mean,
73%.
73%.
So just because you start out one way doesn't mean you have to not only end that way, but you can take like however many derivations of that like along the way. You can do something different 20 times. And just
Right.
remember there's 73% other people who are doing doing the same thing as you know? But for me, with the podcast, like I really had to think like, what is it that you want, Lorna? Um,
Hmm.
and interestingly, my girlfriend Andrea asked me that question about maybe 7 years ago, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, nobody
you know?
nobody ever asks me that,
No.
including myself.
Exactly. Exactly. What do I want? What do you mean? I gotta feed these kids. I gotta do this.
50th in
I gotta do all
line.
my
Like,
homework with
yeah,
them. I don't know
that's
what
right.
I want. How dare you ask me that question?
That's right. I want for all these people to be magically fed and out of my hair. That's what I
That's
want. I'm not getting
right.
it. So why don't we just get back to what they want?
But the interesting thing is that muscle, once you start exercising it, oh, beware, because then you're like,
Oh,
no, I don't want that. No,
good
that's
for
not going to
you.
make me happy. And I don't care what all of you think. I don't want to do this. What I know is
Good
right
for
is
you.
this. And I think that what happens is when you are in your sweet spot, it becomes explosive because you are being your authentic self.
Mm.
And it's like TD Jakes talks about this, like you throw out your magnet and then every metal piece is attracted to it. If you throw out your authentic magnet, that is what happens. And I think that people know when you're doing something that's fake, right? Or you're trying too hard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can see fake 100 miles
100 miles
away.
away.
There's like a
Yeah,
radar, right? It's like, "Eh."
exactly. So needless to say, y'all, my podcast is not about interior design. It's about life journey and it's about style. Sorry. Just-
Love it, right? Love it. Right, right, right. So here's the thing. The book is coming
yes.
out 2024,
2024,
fall of
fall of
2024.
2024, just before holiday season and entertaining and all that. Yes.
Does it have a title already, Lorna?
Um,
Or can we not share it just yet? That might also be not appropriate. I don't know.
Since I haven't checked in with the publisher, I
Yeah, we
won't
won't do
say.
it
I
then.
won't say.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's okay. I as soon as I asked, I was like, might not be able to see." But the podcast is going to launch
The
when?
podcast is launching in September, end of September, and it is called
2023.
2023. It is called Lorna Gross Enchanted Life and Style.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I
All
think of
right,
Cinderella every
so
time I say that. Enchanted.
you got I'm telling you guys gotta watch the YouTube of this. Forget the audio. I swear to God. What's so funny is the reason I say that is you just said you can tell when somebody's not being authentic. And I am having this experience, like I did a few moments ago when you were describing your curated travel trip coming up, that end of your business that you're launching. You and just now when you're like, I think of Cinderella every time. Like it's literally you are exuding it in your body language when you are saying these things. And so you want to talk about like you can tell bullcrapper from a mile away. You can also tell the authentic person
Oh,
from a mile
thank you,
away too, because you're
Luann.
just living in it and it's giving you joy and you're happy to spread the joy about it. It's really intoxicating. It's
Thank you.
fun.
I
It's cool.
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, it's 100% truth. So, all right. So this is amazing. I have loved this conversation. I've loved learning all of these things about you that I did not learn from either of our
Dinners?
dinner parties. So, I'm not sure now. You will launch in September, so you'll give us the link to your
Oh,
podcast
sure.
by then,
Sure.
and so we'll put the link in the show notes
Yes.
for it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll do that for sure. For sure.
All righty. Well, thanks so much for being here with me today, Lorna. It was so much
Oh, it was
fun.
my pleasure. It was my pleasure. And if I might just leave your audience with one thing, I don't remember who wrote this book, but the title of the book was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Feel the
Love
fear
it.
and do it anyway.